All right, what's going on, everybody? I want to welcome you back to another Real Talk with your boy JT. I pray all is well with everybody as we on top. Give the Most High all the honor, the glory, and all the praise and worship. My video title says Singleness. Oh, man, what a dynamic email. My sister, you know who you are. I won't reveal no name. Is it meant for me to just stay single? Even though I desire to be married and want children as I get older and older. What a very powerful email. You know, I always look at it like this, and I'm just going to come from a man's point of view, from a man who used to be single for a long time until I found my queen. Or let me say that right, until the Most High sent me my queen. And one thing I learned in this life, my sister, that we cannot put a time limit on the Most High. But there are people out here who desire to be married. There are people that pray for their spouse, husband or wife. Then there's some people don't have no business getting married because they got married for all the wrong reasons and knew they wasn't going to do right in the marriage. You know, and then there's a lot of people that's just, straight up separated. But everybody is different. I learned that in life. Everybody's different. Different wants, different needs. As looking at your email, I always look at it like this too. There are a lot of women who want to get their career out the way first and then get married. But here's the thing with that. Everybody's age is different. There are people that may start late in life, trying to get a career, or some may start early. There are women that have a career and they don't want kids. And then there's the one that, missed the opportunity growing up. I'm going to say growing up young and didn't jump on the opportunity for whatever reason. If you did jump on it and didn't work out. So you have to look at that also, is that a lot of times in our 20s, we made a lot of mistakes, men and women. Then you be in your 30s trying to do what you did in your 20s. Then when you don't get it right, you're in your 40s trying to do what you want to do in your 30s. And it just goes on and on and on. You're 50 trying to do what you want to do when you was 30. And time, one thing about time, you can't get it back. But even with myself, I prayed and waited. But here's the thing, my sister, there are a lot of people pray, but they don't get themselves prepared to what they pray for. We all can sit around and talk about the desires of our heart, but here's the number one question. Do the desires of our heart line up with the Holy Spirit? I mean, look at Hannah in the Bible. Hannah is a great example. Hannah, all those years, Hannah cried out for a son, She always prayed for a son. She prayed so hard and cried out, they thought she was drunk. But she was not drunk. She was that's how bad she wanted a son. You look at how long certain things take, but then I started getting to the point where I quit looking at how long things took for me in my life. I started looking at how long I did things the wrong way. Now, I don't know what your situation is, because sometimes we wait later on in life to try to get our mindset right and try to do stuff. And then we get mad when it don't happen on our time, I always said I wasn't trying to be 40 and up raising no children. I always said when I was 16, that for all my life, I used to say I didn't even want children, But that thought process changed later on down the road because as you get older, sometimes, things you say you didn't want. I tell my oldest daughter that all the time. I tell Gabby, I always say she don't want no kid. I say, yeah, you say that right now. Just like I said it, but as you get older, the Bible say be fruitful and multiply. It's part of the Most High's will for us to, have children, to be fruitful and multiply, to have family. Family is very important, but at the same time, a lot of people just not cut out for that. You got people that's good with making babies, and not good with taking care of them. We already know that's just a proven fact. We see that all the time. But then you also asked in your email, do I believe that's a curse? No, I don't believe it's a curse. And it's sad because you got women who want to have kids and can't have kids. You know, adoption is always an option too. Because one thing I always look at, man, the complications you can have as you get older and older trying to have kids. You know, even with my wife, as we had our baby boy, man, that was a tough birth. You know, it was very tough. One thing about it, we don't get no younger in this life. So no, I don't think that's a curse. I would have to know a little bit more about the situation. But that's why I say I don't know the whole situation, but I know that from a lot of decisions that we make in life, we put off time a lot, you know. Like you say, you got other people around you, they'll make a good wife, you know, but that's why I'm trying to rightly divide this, because there are a lot of women who got good careers, man, make good money, you know, but this is the danger with being alone. A lot of times you can get so stuck on yourself that you won't allow yourself to even be open-minded to get into a relationship. I'm not talking about you, but I see this all the time from ministering to a lot of people. Like I say, they pray about it, but it's like when you start talking about coming into a relationship, things are going to change. And if you one of those ones that got that mindset like it's got to be my way or no way at all, you might as well stay single. You know, even in the Bible, Paul made a statement. It wasn't a commandment from the Most High, but Paul said, if it was up to me, for those that's single, I would tell y'all to remain single as I am. But you got to look at why Paul said that also, because you can get hooked up with the wrong person, and the wrong person, the wrong woman or wrong man will keep you away from the Most High. You know, and what was going on in Paul in them days was a lot of sexual immorality, whole lot of things was out of order, you know, and that's why he was telling people to focus on singleness. Singleness is it's also a blessing, but it also gets rough. I'm talking from my past experience. I know how you feel in this email, because I used to be the same way. I used to think that it wasn't going to happen, you know. As I got older and older, is it going to happen? You know, people, if you was around me, the people that know me, they would tell you, I didn't think JT was going to ever get married. I didn't think he was going to ever have kids. I just, man, you know, because out of everybody, see, one thing about me growing up, it wasn't no, a lot of my homeboys, they wanted children early. A lot of homegirls, they wanted children early. But for me, I was really trying to focus on music in my life. So I wasn't trying to really have no kids, you know, at 16 years old, 15 years old, 17 years old. I was more, concerned about my life, you know. It was hard enough dealing with my own life, then trying to be versus bringing in another life or children, you know. So that's another thing I look at. How is your focus being? Because when you focus on yourself for a while, that turns into a long time also, you know, because time passed by fast if you really look at it. You know, I'm speaking from a man's point of view once again in the video. Maybe I can get Dee Dee to do a part 2, you know, on this from her standpoint, because she was the same way. You know, when I first met Dee Dee online, we was both going through a whole lot, you know. We was both single. We was both wondering the same thing. Hey, is it even meant for me to even have somebody? Because she came from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm in Dallas, Texas. But I tell you one thing, with much prayer, much fasting, if it's in the what I'm gonna tell you like this: what y'all have for you, it is for you, and it ain't nothing nobody can do about it to stop it. You know, if I kept praying and praying, but see, here's the thing too: you got to get out of sin. I'm not saying you are in sin. I'm just making a statement as myself. There's times when I lived the wrong way. I was shacking up, you know, with the wrong person, trying to receive the Most High blessings from shacking up, you know, back in the day. I had to let all that stuff go. I had to let everything go so I can see clearly and hear from the Most High, you know, because I was trying to get blessings in all the wrong ways, and I was trying to, as the old folk would say, have your cake and eat it too. That's what I was trying to do at first, and I was wondering why, because I was not truly seeking the kingdom. You know, I know a lady that's she's probably about 56 now, and she had a little girl at age 50, You know, everything came out okay. There wasn't no complications or nothing. You know, but all the other kids are grown. So that's things you got to look at too. When you head toward 50, especially, man, do you really have your mindset or your body right to even have kids like that? And then would you even have your mindset ready to raise a child at age 50? These are things you got to think about all the time. You know, I'm not saying that to say it can't happen, because it happens. It has happened, and it will happen again to somebody else. You know, I'm speaking for people that I know that's, like I say, age 50 with children. So it's then you got to ask yourself, how much can you take? You know, how much can you take? I know some people that's 70 and up still waiting on the help meet. So that's why I always say we got to reflect back on our life. I'm not trying to say go back to your past, but a lot of times people's past is still hindering their future. Oh, teach Holy Spirit. There's a lot of people, what they done in the past, their past will not allow them to move forward because they haven't forgiven their past. They haven't forgiven themselves, or the simple fact they haven't learned from their past. So you got to look at all this stuff I'm saying in this video. Like I say, I don't know exactly what your situation is, you know, but don't say things like I'm gonna lose hope. You know, you just, at this point in life, when you're hitting 50, you got to just really make some serious decisions and be like, can my body even handle this? Do I want to go through this? Or you got to look at other options like adopting. Because I'm going to tell you something, most people who say they ready, if they haven't gotten themselves ready, they not ready. They can't handle it. I went from being single, you know, with my Dee Dee already had Gabby. I don't say stepdaughter. I don't call Gabby my stepdaughter. I say that's my daughter. But Dee Dee already had Gabby. I'm a musician, so my whole house I'm in was nothing but a music house. So I had to get my mindset right. Hey, and then we had baby J and Jada, so it's 3 in all. I had to get my mindset totally ready, you know, for what I was dealing with. I had to get rid of a lot of stuff. I had to change not only my mindset, but change up how I was living, change up the house. That's not easy to do. So that's the other question once again, is how much can you take in? Because when you talking about being single for 13 years, and then all of a sudden, boom. See, the thing that made mine a little bit more easy was that I prayed. Not only while I was praying for it, I got myself ready for what I was praying for. And that's the key right there. Ask the Most High to give you strength in what you pray for. Get yourself ready for. Because one thing about a marriage, you will have to compromise. You don't compromise this Bible, but in a marriage, I don't know nobody that's married that cannot compromise with each other. Because you different. You two imperfect people coming together as one under the covenant of Yah. You know, that's a tough, marriage is the toughest job on this planet, plus overtime. You know, because we are imperfect people who will make mistakes. We do make mistakes, but you live and learn from your mistakes. So you got to take all this in consideration, because right now it's just you. It's just you. But if you like me, you get tired of you. You can become your biggest enemy. And I had to learn that the hard way in life. I was single so long. I tell people all the time, I used to go in the room just to get away from myself. But I didn't want to end up being no double-minded man, no foolish man, no unstable man. So that was my prayer, Father. Let me be that provider. Let me be that father. Let me be all in all for you. You know, so your mindset is going to have to change when you're talking about leaving singleness. It's just, I'm not trying to say this to you, sister, but it's a lot of people that just cannot handle when they talking about leaving from being single to actually being with somebody. And nowadays it's extra harder because you don't know what you're dealing with out here now. It's a lot of people online lying about who they are, you know, what they are. It's a lot of people that just, You know, they posting pictures that's not them. They lying. I mean, you gotta look out for all this kind of crazy stuff. But I'm still a firm believer in whatever it is that Yah have for you. If you truly want to be married, like I say, don't sit there and be like, I think I'm cursed. You know, is this a part of the curse from the Bible? You know, from Israel, the daughters of Zion. No, don't speak this. I'm gonna tell you something else. It's life and death in the power of the tongue. You know, so ask yourself this once again: what do you want to put up with? Cause see, you single. You know, nowadays you rarely find a woman without children or a man without children. And I'm gonna say this even in this video, that's still a blessing, because now you don't have no baby daddy drama, you don't have no luggage. And I'm not saying that to say kids are not a blessing, because children are a blessing. But, you know, it's just, you may meet that man that got that one son or that one daughter or two daughters. The situation gets hard. It gets hard, because once again, that's the other thing I'm gonna keep saying. How much can you put up with? I always used to say, man, trying to find a woman without kids nowadays is very hard. But my sister, you are one of those women, you know, without children, and some men would try to take advantage of that. So you be careful, but you just continue to pray and ask the Most High to reveal to you what it truly is that He wants for you. And I'm gonna say this again: just make sure the desires of your heart, lines up with His will. That's very important. We're so quick to talk about our desires of our heart, and then this is another thing I always used to say when you pray. Ask the Most High to place you with who you need versus who you want, because He will supply your every need. There are a lot of women, and I like this because you're not settling, you're selecting. There are a lot of women that will just settle, like a lot of men. It's some men I know, man, they don't have no type of status. They like, hey, you know, I don't have nothing. I take whatever. And that's low. You should never look down on yourself low. The question is, once again, is how much do you value yourself? So, you know, going on 50 years old, you know, trying to have a child or thinking about marriage, that is a tough situation, you know. But I'm not gonna say it's impossible and it won't happen, because I serve the Most High that said that things that are impossible with man are possible with the Father. So it's still possible. But once again, as you get older, it's just going to be how much can you deal with, you know. We get older, our bodies get older. You know, we start looking different, doing things different, you know, because you aging, you know. And I'm not saying it in a bad way. It's a blessing to get old. So just think about that. And it's so much to think about, you know, when you pass 40. I always say that. It's so much to think about. And then you got to look at it like this too, you know, with your career. Or if you one of those women that make more money than that man, you gotta tie all this stuff in together. Some men get intimidated. I'm not one of the men that get intimidated, but there may be another issue. See, I don't know your background and your issue on why you have been single so long, or maybe you came out of a bad relationship. You know, I don't know if you came out of something bad and that stopped you from just, you know. Some people get scarred, my sister, and they never bounce back from it. Or some get scarred and they able to move on, and then some get scarred and they try to move on, but they haven't closed that last door. You know, the old folk would say, don't open up another door until you close that last one. In other words, don't bring all them problems to your new man. Don't hold this man accountable for something he didn't do when you trying to. See, some people try to move on while they in the hurt position. They're not in the healing process, you know. And hurt people. I'm going to say it again. Hurt people hurt people. So that's just my little 2 cents on there. I could go a little bit longer, but I think I'm going to just stop right there. You just let me know how you feel now with this answer. I wanted to do this video because it was going to be too much to write back. You know, so it's just easier for me to freestyle and do this video off the top of my head because I can relate to being single for a long time. You know, and being single has a lot of blessings, but being single also can hold you back in so many ways. And see, I'm also speaking biblically, because even for a man, let me just say this before I close out. Even for a man, Yahweh said it is not good for man to be alone. Now, if he told us that as men, how you think that applies for a woman? That's why he said a man marriage, his covenant is so awesome, because a man shall leave his mother and father to cleave to his wife. Or the Bible says a man, him that find himself a wife, find it a good thing, and Yah shows favor on it. I was always a happy type of dude. I stayed the same every day, man. My spirit was always uplifted, but I was still unbalanced. I still was missing something, and what I was missing was my queen, my Didi. I was missing my helpmeet. I was missing my children that I didn't have, you know, until later on in life. So you got to look at it like that, you know, because you're a little bit older than me. So I can say from a man's point of view, it's not even good for a man to be alone, you know. He didn't say man couldn't be alone, but it wasn't good for man to be alone. I'm going to make somebody suitable for him. That's why helpmeet come in at. That's why he blessed Adam with Eve, you know. Because when you have a tag team partner, you know, it's a blessing when you're on one accord. But don't go out here and get unequally yoked with somebody, you know. And that means being unequally yoked, period. The Bible really wasn't even talking about marriage in that scripture, but you can apply that to marriage. When Paul said that, he was talking about in general, you know. You got kinfolks you unequally yoked with, co-workers, church folks, you know, people in your life. It's hard to move forward when you unequally yoked with somebody, you know. So keep that in mind also. And my prayers will be with you, you know. So this is my little advice, you know. Ain't nothing too hard for the Most High, but just take in consideration everything I just, you know, stated to you coming from a man's point of view. And to all the ladies that's watching this, whether you married or not, leave some feedback and leave some comment for our sister on here, because I know y'all going to say the right thing, you know, because some of y'all may be going through the same thing. So with that being said, that's my time. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful, blessed day. Shalom.